You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hi, everyone. We're back at Stellar Success Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tudor Francu, and I have a great friend, investor, medical professional, dentist, and a wealth of knowledge person today as a guest, Dr. Casey Finnis, from all the way from North Dakota. How are you, Casey?
Hey, good. That's quite an introduction, Tutor.
Yeah, absolutely. We uh, we go back a few years back, a friendship and partnership, and I kind of want to showcase your ability of succeeding in both medical profession and real estate investing. So I think the audience is going to have a fun time listening to your story and to your advices and to your lessons, so to speak. So, Casey, what do you think success means to you?
Oh man. I don't know what to say there because success is always just something like I'm striving for. I don't know that I've ever gotten there. Yet I think it's a perceived thing from others. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So when you're in the heart of the battle, like there's always things that you're like, oh man, that could be done way better. That needs work. You know what I mean? So I feel like you're always focused on like the betterment of whatever you're doing, you
Yeah.
know?
No, I kind of tend to agree with this approach because I personally don't think of myself as successful, and it's hard for yourself to think as successful. It's like you said, it's a perception for someone else, or the environment you're in, that you are successful or you're not. But in your case, obviously, some things went right, and you did some things very well. So why don't you start by, telling us a little bit about your journey? How did you start in medical professional and investing, and what kind of
Yeah.
journey did you have?
So, I mean, I'm a full-time, well, maybe I'll say quasi full-time, whatever you want to call it now, dentist. I mean, I for many, many years of my life, I practiced 4 days a week, which is considered full-time as a dentist. And then, uh, and then in 2009, way back when, I remember, well, so my parents, I guess even going further back, my parents owned some apartments when I was growing up, and then they eventually got their sixplex paid for, and then they ended up building a 12plex, and I helped my parents build the 12plex. I was painting it, and I'd mow the lawns on these properties, and then like even landscape the 12plex, and my uncle was much, much bigger in real estate than even my parents were. He had millions of dollars in apartments. In fact, if you go to my hometown, like I think he's somewhere near a quarter of the town of the apartments is what he owns. So there's my mentor, you know what I mean, or my person that I look up to. But anyway, that's kind of how I started. And then I went to school to become a dentist. I started my practice in 2005. Um, and then, well, I graduated in 2003, started or bought my office in 2005. Somewhere in the mix, I bought a chunk of land and I still have yet to build an apartment building on it. I still own the chunk of land, but um, I remember talking with banks about that first deal, and they were really interested in like, okay, well, if you build this thing, then we're going to not be able to do loans in your dental office for a period of time until the cash flow stabilizes. And so then I started picking a lot of bankers' brains on like, okay, well, what if I buy an apartment building that's already cash flowing? And they're like, well, then that's less risky to us as a bank even because you've got 2 years of performance of the building. And so then obviously like then there's not as much risk as say a new build. You're taking a piece of dirt and building, and then where exactly are the rents going to stabilize at? There's some amount of variability to that. But anyway, so then I started buying properties, and in 2009 I bought my first apartment building. That was my first commercial purchase other than this just raw chunk of dirt. And then I mean that one just cash flowed immensely well. And so then I
Oh,
started
how big
buying.
was the property?
It was a 9 unit apartment complex, and all of your listeners will find this just hilarious. But 9 units in Morton, North Dakota, which I held the monopoly on all of the apartment units in Morton, North Dakota, which Morton is a tiny town. But I held a monopoly on all of them. And the purchase price of that property, I remember, was 122,000.
Wow.
So it's not 122,000 per door. It was 122,000 for the whole building, you know. And
Yeah,
then
you can't find this anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if you can find deals like that anymore. And I mean, the rent roll on the time at the time was 3,300 a month, which is, that's pretty significant rent roll for what I was paying. And anyway, so then I just continued to buy properties and I bought a 12, or no, the next one was a 16, then I bought a 6. Then we started getting into the bigger, when I say bigger properties, I'll say like rather than them being $100,000 or $200,000 property, they started to become like $1 million property. And so then I bought some office buildings, and then somewhere in the mix, I bought. I remember one month I had 5 closings. In May of 2012, I closed on 5 properties that month. It was crazy.
Wow.
Um,
And this is
and
while you're practicing full
this
time.
is yeah, this is while I'm practicing.
Yeah,
So,
this is very important because, this is where I want to stop a little bit, and I want to kind of ponder upon the fact that you are a full-time practicing dentist with your
hmm
own office to run,
yep,
with the family,
yep,
with the day-to-day, all this troubles about running the office and your business. And then
yep.
you find time, though, to invest in real estate in a big, big way, right? You don't
Th-
start with one single family home. You start with a 9-unit apartment building.
yeah. Well, I'd had some experience with apartment buildings because of my parents. Do you know what I mean? And a 9 unit isn't that crazy that you can't manage it yourself. In fact, I managed that building myself. Like I didn't even have a property management company because I knew I was going to do this long term, so I wanted to know exactly what the property managers were doing and what they're
Mhm.
up to,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So
And you still had 24 hours in a day?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because
I
this is
would
this is
I wouldn't recommend to any of your listeners to manage a property, but
yeah,
I'll tell you there's a lot of lessons learned from managing a property. Do you know what I mean? So
right.
like one of the things the tenants would pull on me on that first property would they tell you their sob story and you'd kind of feel bad, or whatever, and then you'd let them pay you late or whatever. And what's interesting when you have property management teams in front of you is it's kind of like the good cop bad cop thing. Like the management team says, well, the mean owner told me I got to come here and collect all the money, and then the you know what I mean, and like, but I just don't hear it from the tenants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and it's their
No, but
job to collect it.
yeah, absolutely. But it's impressive, not only in terms of time management for you at that age and your professional career, but also in terms of your mindset.
Mhm.
Because I think this is very important for someone who wants to start investing in real estate, from healthcare, is that there's no good time to start. You need to start yesterday,
Yeah,
and the sooner you start, the better. Because
it's just
like in your case, you just bought an office and you start buying a 9-unit apartment building right away.
yeah,
So it's just like it doesn't really matter if you do things in order. You just have to do them as soon
yeah,
as you can, the right way, like you did.
yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us, yeah, tell us how this thing evolved from a couple of buildings with units to multiple other stuff that you bought.
Yeah, so I mean, like, well, let's see here. In 2012, I did those 5 closings. One happened to be my hotel, my first hotel.
Okay,
Um, and I mean, like to give you an idea, a hotel is a massive undertaking, like massive, massive. I don't know that I'd recommend any busy medical professional to jump into one of those, but you have a full-time staff of housekeepers and all of that. You know what I mean? And so then you need to
right.
be the leader, and you get to
Yes.
be present.
How did you think about buying a hotel? Because at this point you're owning, several multiple apartment buildings.
hmm
What made
Um,
you switch to the hotel side?
truth be told, so so the gas station that I bought, which once again I would
Okay,
not
hold on.
recommend.
Let's hold on a second. Just take it from the start. Where is the gas station coming in?
The gas station was let's see here. I think we had already had a couple of apartment buildings, and then I think I bought the gas station.
Okay, in that
So,
same town or
yep,
same area? Okay.
yep.
All right. So, okay, then I have to backtrack. Tell me about how did you make a decision to buy a gas station then from apartment buildings? Because that's
Um,
not really a typical real estate investment.
yeah, yes and no. Like gas stations can be immensely profitable, but like they're also like the staff of them will eat you
Hmm.
alive.
Yeah,
And eventually I just got to the point where, but my gas station is kind of one of those things where I bought the gas station and then I got so sick of managing it with all the people that were just, I mean, maybe I should be careful with some of your listeners, like, but I'll just say the staff of a gas station are not, they didn't graduate first in their class.
yeah,
I I doubt they even graduated. Maybe we'll just leave it at that. You know what I mean?
yes, I understand.
So they can be very, very difficult. Like just
Yeah,
reporting to work at 5 in the morning is a big deal
right.
to somebody like that, you
I
know.
see.
And
Um,
but anyway, so then like I buy this gas station, then a few years later the city starts to like rezone the whole area and they rezoned it as as West Fargo's downtown. And so then all of a sudden I'm like, man, I gotta hold on to this thing because if they're rezoning it as West Fargo's downtown, I got an entire city block
right.
of what'll be the downtown, you know. And since then, like they've built some pretty immense buildings
Yeah.
in and around the area.
So, did you have someone who was managing the gas station for you at that time?
Yeah. Yep.
And
So
did
I
you
had
have
a
anybody else that were managing the apartment buildings that you had?
so the apartment buildings, let's see here. Early on, I think I had resident managers that were that would just report to me and they'd send rent checks up and we'd talk, a couple times a month.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, it wasn't during my practicing day always, you know what I mean? But maybe
I
we'd
see.
talk on an evening or whatever for a half an hour or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. Um,
All right. And then what happened after the gas station? You said you wanted to buy a hotel?
so the guy, the broker that sold me the gas station, he kept bugging me about, well, you should try a hotel. And I'm like, no, I don't know that I want to do a hotel. There's a lot of staff involved, and I'd rather stick with apartments
Yeah.
and that type of stuff. And office buildings are just way less. There's way less people
Right.
involved
That's
in.
that's a whole ball game of hospitality environment that you have to deal with, right?
Yeah. Well, anyway, this broker and I had kind of become pretty good friends. Do you know what I mean? Through the transaction and just starting to hang out with each other. So then anyway, it gets to the point where he's like, well, what if you and I partnered on a hotel? And I thought, oh my God, this could be crazy actually, because he brokers hotels. He brokers the sale of hotels.
Hmm.
So like he's out there looking at tons of hotels, and he'll probably come across like a super screaming deal
Hmm.
when it happens, you know. And so it got to the point where like him and I went out, we just kind of went shopping, looking at different hotels, and he was showing me how you can make money doing different things with the hotels. And I'm like, I really had no concept really when I was getting into a hotel, other than I'm from having stayed in a hotel, I kind of knew what a hotel was
Yeah.
all about, you know. But one thing I learned from shopping hotels around is that there's usually pretty immense cash flow on hotels. And then another thing I'll share with your listeners is really, really early in my life, I actually took the Forbes 500 list of the richest people in the world or in the United States or whatever it is. And you go down the whole list and you see what each person had done,
Hmm.
with their to get their wealth. And what was crazy about just that exercise was the fact that like there's kind of these one-off people like a Bill Gates that made a bunch in software
Hmm.
and then there's Warren Buffett that made a bunch in the stock market, and then there's a bunch of Waltons that were related to Walmarts, you know what I mean? And but when you look at that list, 80% of the people on that list made their money on real estate.
Yeah.
And so then that started me thinking like, this is where a guy needs to position himself. But then interestingly enough, Tudor, and I don't know if I've shared this with you, the hospitality or the hotel thing, that's got to be about 60% of the list were in hospitality or were in hotels,
Oh, wow.
you
Okay.
know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so when you look at hotels, like the cash flow that comes out of them is just insane, like compared to the debt service.
Hmm.
But it's
Hmm.
kind of an active running business. too, so I don't know, you have like, okay, so like you got like triple net lease buildings where there's like next to nothing for involvement,
Hmm.
all the way up to like a hotel is like I'm stopping by weekly, do you know what I mean, and checking in with mainly in a hotel, you kind of hire three people. You hire your general manager, your maintenance guy, and then your head housekeeper. And
Yeah.
and then from those three hire all the rest of them. And so it's just a revolving door of housekeepers. Like,
Hmm.
and what's hilarious is because I can walk into my hotel and I can secret shop it because none of the housekeepers know who I am. You know. And I say that because they weren't there last week. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
just kind of this revolving door of people,
Interesting.
unfortunately. You know.
So, okay, so let's move forward. So you got a hotel. How big was the hotel you got first time?
It was 90 doors.
90 doors. Okay. And is this something that you still have?
I just sold it last month actually.
I see.
So so I started out that hotel, that investment was kind of crazy. I started out as kind of a half partner
Hmm.
in the hotel. Then a couple of years later I bought out my other partner and then I was the full owner of that hotel. And then fast forward whatever 12 years and I sold it and I mean the check was sizable. I mean that I got out of it.
Yeah.
I mean in well, I bought it in 2012, and so now it's 2024 is when I sold it. So 12 years
Right.
of growth. But I mean, I 10x'd my money,
Wow.
in that time period.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's impressive. That's something that you see, like what I like to say is that if your goals don't scare you, you don't think big enough.
yeah,
That's exactly what you did. You
yeah,
went from, a few apartment buildings, small apartment buildings, to a little dabble in a gas station, and you hit it out of the park with this hotel, right? In
yeah.
12 years, right? So you didn't necessarily want to do that, but you partner with the right people and you find the right investment. And even if you think you can manage it, you found a way, right?
Oh
To
yeah.
make it work. Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
Well, and I mean, like, once again, you started out the podcast with success. Do you know what I mean? And on the outside looking in, that was successful. But I'll tell you, like, there was a lot of battles like along
Yeah.
the way. I mean, a lot of battles. I mean, for instance, I mean, I owned two hotels through COVID, and
Okay.
yeah, so when your general manager calls you up and says, "Yeah, we don't have anyone booked for the next 3 months," you start to get a little worried, you know.
Yep. Yep.
But somehow I made it through that period of time, you know.
Yeah.
So
I know. Interesting. And these are hotels that are, good location, I believe, and something that you would invest again in.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like the one I just sold, I'll just say it's kind of like a Class C hotel if you want
Hmm.
to, A, B, and C classes of apartments. And the Class C clients there's some challenges there. I mean, we had to put cameras everywhere and like because there was drug deals going on in my back parking lot, and
Yeah,
I mean, it's just all kinds, you know.
I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine. So, Casey, where are you now?
So fast forward, like like so I bought that one hotel, and then I own a second one, but now I'm down to one hotel that I own. And then I've continued to kind of buy buildings. I went through a divorce, so that slowed me down for a couple of years. And then I bought in 2019, I closed on 9 properties that year. And so I got some of my bigger properties when I did that round of purchasing.
Hmm.
Um, so I've got a 90 unit apartment complex that I own myself, and then I've got a 52 that I own myself, and I've got 5 single family homes aside from the house that I live in. So technically I own 6 single family homes, but um, and then let's see here. Then the office buildings, that they're all just you
And
just kind of accumulate them one at a time.
yeah, so all these are in one area.
So they're all in North Dakota, South Dakota, and
Hmm.
Minnesota. Because I live right on. I'm not quite the corner of the three states, but I'm just a little north in North Dakota and Minnesota. So like I buy properties in all of the three states. I prefer to stay out of Minnesota because Minnesota's a blue state, and there's just issues that happen in
Yeah,
blue states for sure.
I see.
So
Interesting. So, and your practice is still going,
yeah,
correct?
the whole time.
Okay.
So
Um, well, Casey, can you give us an example of any kind of, we talked about a lot about, your success in real estate and how you did it, but I'm sure you had several lessons to learn along the way
mhm.
and maybe failures. Can you give us an example of some things that didn't work out?
um well, I mean, like at the time when when you got no one staying at your hotels through COVID, you're thinking, oh boy, are we filing for bankruptcy here? Do you know what I mean? Or you get to the point too where you're like, like my C store, I'm just so sick of dealing with the people, the staff, and then you end up closing it down. But then what came of that is you close it down and then you just pivot, and all of a sudden now I've got it triple net rented to a trailer sales guy, and so now it's kind of like a set it and forget it kind of thing. So
Yeah,
um, and failures, I don't know what to say. So let me give you kind of an idea of what your listeners might think of as success, and then what I feel like is failure, and or failure not getting to me, I guess. So like
right.
early in my dental practice, they wouldn't even give me loans on two additional chairs. So I had four chairs and I wanted to go to six chairs, and the bank was like, no way. So then I found this high interest, I don't know, lending shark out of Chicago that he's like, I'll give you some money, but it'll cost you like 14% a year, or whatever it was, and I'm like, well, as a dentist, if I put patients in that chair, I can outrun that 14% interest fairly quickly. So that makes sense for me to do. So then you fast forward a couple of years, and then now I'm trying to refinance. Do you know what I mean? All of that stuff and ball it up into a nice loan that's not like such
Hmm.
high interest and whatever. So I started shopping it to different banks in town, and the 14th bank that I presented all of my financials to, like all of them, like presented, like here's my tax returns, here's my P&Ls, here's my, like can I meet with you on Friday? The 14th one finally said, "Yep, we'll refinance you." But what nobody sees is the 13 banks before that said no to me, and they just rejected me, and they said, "No, we're not doing it with you."
Yeah.
And and I have no idea why those banks didn't do things with me
Yeah,
at the
you
time.
had basically 13 rejections before you got the 14 yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's a classical definition of success, Casey. I think
yeah.
the ability of a successful person like you to deal with failures and rejections, because
Yeah.
someone in your shoes and with your mindset will never quit
Yeah. Oh, I
until you
mean,
get the 14 yes.
yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, even when like you get to the point where you start making offers on properties, if you're not getting rejected way more than you get accepted offers, like you're giving way too much,
Yeah,
you know. In fact, like even my 90 unit apartment building that I own, like I remember sitting down with the gentleman, and like we tried to put together a deal, and I mean, it was very cordial between him and I, and I'm like, well, I don't know, this is where I'm at. I can't, I'm not going to do any more. Do you know what I mean? And he's like, well, that just doesn't work for my situation. And I'm like, well, okay, no harm, no foul. Like, thanks for meeting with me. You know what I mean? And then about 6 months kind of go by, and he all of a sudden he reaches out to me again, and he's like, hey, some things have changed in my world, and I think we could probably make something work, you know. And
yeah,
and so then I just absolutely love the callback that happens months later, Tudor, like on when you're making offers on buildings and you get a call months later, like, oh,
yeah.
that's going to be a sweet deal.
That's very satisfying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So Casey, what do you think listeners should learn in terms of of what kind of habits and routines you have all throughout your life to be able to do what you did?
my whole like let me back up. If I was going to give a young person or just a person some advice on various things, I'll share with you this. So like my entire real estate empire, what was truly built on me dedicating 2 hours a week to the pursuit of real estate. And I'll share with you when that happened. It happened to be I would my ex-wife now would she would lay down or she would go to bed early because she was a nurse anesthetist, so she'd have to get up early with her hospital cases. And not that I was staying up super late, but I was more of a night person or a night owl. So from 10 o'clock until midnight, I'd usually sit in my easy chair with my laptop on my lap and I would just search for properties and I'd just search for them, you know. And every week from 10 o'clock until midnight on Sunday nights, I would just sit there and search all of the properties. And then I would send emails on all of those properties. And then the brokers throughout the week would get back to me on them. And so I guess if I was going to try to give people some advice on like moving the dial, like it's all about like spending a couple of hours a week working on something that you're trying to get to, you know?
Yeah,
Even when you
that
think of like physical fitness, like
right.
if you dedicate a couple hours a week to physical fitness, you will be physically fit,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, you can become physically fit in a day or a week, but
No,
it's something that you do every day. That little, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day that you do it, it's going to get you to the finish line. It's
yeah,
relentless persistence, I think,
yeah, yeah,
in
that's
whatever you
exactly
want to
it.
do. It's like the Chinese drop, how they say it, right?
Yeah,
It's there all the time, like
yeah,
clockwork. If you
yeah.
do if you do this kind of work, like you said, 2 hours a day, or use your weekends maybe
It,
to
it
do
wasn't,
something that some other people don't want to do. Some
it,
people after 5 days a week, they want to go on vacation on the weekend or do something else, and maybe those like hours on a day of the weekend that you can find to search for properties or educate yourself or talk to the brokers.
but
Yeah,
it
that's
tutor, it wasn't even 2 hours a day. It was 2 hours a week.
a
Like
week.
like it'd be Sunday night from 10 o'clock till midnight. I would work on just searching, combing properties and asking brokers things. And then, I mean, during my week in between patients, I would just respond, do you know what I mean, to the various brokers from time to time,
Yeah,
and kind
yeah,
of, kind of in between patients, we all have those times where like, okay, like I was really busy this morning and I just didn't have time to check my email,
yeah,
but then maybe this afternoon, like there was somebody that didn't show, and so you got a half an hour.
yeah.
That's another thing that I think successful people do that not successful people don't do is when you have little spots of time in your day, really successful people like make those super efficient and do something with like your 10 minutes.
Hmm.
But like the unsuccessful people jump on TikTok and like, you know what I mean, and Facebook and
Yeah,
they scroll through their stuff. Successful people will fire off an email to that broker that sent me something, you
yeah.
know.
I agree with
So,
that.
so,
Yeah,
so we
that's
all have
definitely.
our that time in our day. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Maybe it's your kids' whatever dance thing, and you're waiting to pick them up, and you got 5 or 10 minutes. It's all in how you use that 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
You know?
definitely, definitely. And I think it's the also the will to do something. Like if you
Yeah,
really want to do this thing, you're gonna find time.
yeah,
Because we all have the same amount of time on a day. That's why I ask you, you you have the same 24 hours like we all do. And
yeah,
though you built a real estate empire with a full-time dental practice.
yeah,
And I would say you're probably at this point more accomplished in real estate than in your dental practice, like value wise, I would say,
oh,
because think about it, all these properties that you own right now outright, maybe, and
yeah.
it's not the end, I'm sure, for you. What's
No,
coming up? What are you excited about in the near future?
um, I don't know what to say there. Like, I mean, like interest rates coming back down. I can't wait to like see some of that stuff. I suspect that they're coming back down. I mean, it's always a guess, you know what I mean, as to whether they are, but I feel like a lot of the markets are kind of cooling off with higher interest rates, and so then at some point they're going to have to start moving them back down. Um, and then too, I mean, like I'm just constantly. I mean, I guess I didn't complete the whole cycle. Like I, I own about $30 million worth of real estate that just I own, and then of course I've partnered with you and some others on bigger apartment complexes, and I don't know where we're at right now, probably 150 million
Yeah.
partnership deals,
Yeah.
because I've got 5 general partnership deals. And then, but like moving forward, like I'm open and game to do all of the above, Um, I know recently I had a friend sit down with me, and he's having an issue with one of his buildings and the guy that had purchased it. And so I think him and I are going to end up doing a deal on, on another apartment building here, you know.
Nice. Very
So,
nice.
so we'll add another 17 units to the 170 that I have. We'll just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you said, one at a time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, like I guess in my world in the near future, I've just really struggled with staff of like management teams and just how much turnover they have and how little they care about some of my properties and so on. But one of my goals for 2025 is I think I have, just so your listeners are completely aware of this, like I have zero interest, like zero, in becoming a property management like company, like
Yeah.
zero interest. But in order to do what I need to do on these assets, I think I'm going to start a property management team that's going to just take over all of the stuff that I own.
Yeah.
And and I mean, with the management fees that are going out to these third party managers, like I can more than support a
Yeah.
full-time person.
It's funny because you're not the only one who's doing that. More and more, I hear people doing the same thing in this field, especially in multifamily environment, that they're forming their own property management company, and they're vertically integrated with all this management staff. But yeah, I think it's a great idea, especially if you are at the level that you are, and you own, a lot of properties, that it might worth doing, do that with one company that can oversee all your properties.
Yeah.
But
It's more just like getting, like I feel like when you hire a staff member, much like a dental assistant, this would just be like my property manager. Like if she doesn't care about the office and what we're doing there, then I'm
yeah,
probably going to fire her and get the right person in there. So
right.
I'm not saying right out of the chute, like I'll just have a property manager, but I do have some hotel managers that are down a hotel now. And I think what we're going to do is develop them into the property management team for the whole rest of
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
So like the people are kind of already in place.
yeah,
So
excellent.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Casey, I think you're a wealth of knowledge. I think people should reach out to you for advice in this field. How can they get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, my email address is just docfines, so it's DOCFINES at evergreensmiles.com. And if you want to reach out, I mean, I own Evergreen Dental in Fargo, North Dakota. I mean, occasionally I'll have people call my office because that's the easiest way
Hmm.
too. But yeah, reach out on email, and I mean, I always love visiting about real estate. So,
Yeah,
but
I know that. We had multiple conversations about that, and I'm happy I got you on the show for people to get to know you and get your story out.
yeah,
Thanks for coming, and I hope we
well,
can maybe circle back this year and see how many more units you got.
yeah. Well, we'll see. You know what I mean? But and I appreciate you, Tudor, for reaching out and having me on your podcast.
Absolutely,
So
definitely,
it's been fun.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Casey.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.